Hi, Leo. It's good to be here together with you today, and really just wanted to talk to you about your origin story. We've gotten to know each other a little bit over the last few months, and just really fascinated by your origin story. I'd love to hear sort of from the beginning. You're a speaker now. You're an international speaker, and you have a whole other business, the art and the video and the photography. Before we get to what you're doing now, sort of take us back, years and tell us how you started and why you're doing what you're doing.
I appreciate you for giving me this platform to share this story. I don't normally share my own story. I usually share other people's. So thank you for your curiosity and your appreciation towards my origin story. I was a half Japanese, half American kid growing up in Japan, and my whole life I felt like I was, a Caucasian kid in Japan. Come over here, I was always considered the Japanese kid, So I always kind of felt like I didn't fit in, and that was something that I kind of struggled with throughout my life. But I had a lot of good friends in Japan and real huge bonding experiences that really shaped me. My sixth grade teacher, she was diagnosed with cancer, during halfway through our school year, and we kind of bonded as a whole class to graduate, because you graduate at sixth grade in Japan for elementary school. We kind of bonded for our substitute teacher, and we were the only class that would hang out after class at parks, together, boys and girls included. So I just kind of learned how to appreciate friendship, but also appreciate time. I was always taught through my Japanese upbringing to hone in on making memories, and realizing the people that are around you, and the things that you're doing are extremely important. You're going to reflect on it, so make sure you document it and stuff like. So that was already engraved in me. So once I moved to
So if you don't mind my asking, so were both of your parents Japanese?
No, my father is American. He's from Michigan.
Okay.
And my mother is Japanese. And they met because my father was stationed in the military in Japan, which a great point to bring up for me, an important point. My whole existence, I feel like, is predicated on America and Japan's war, because if America didn't have a military base in Japan, my dad never would have been stationed over there. So my whole existence is predicated on something negative, right? So the atomic bomb, Pearl Harbor, all those horrific things that happened led to my existence. Wow. So I am essentially something that came out of something negative. So the reason why I want to be positive in this world is because I want to, prove, right, that something positive can come out of something negative. And I think that's why you and I are bonding, because I think we are both things like that, or cells in on this planet, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. So that's kind of that perspective still sits with me today. And what's crazy is my 10-month-old daughter was born on the same day Hiroshima bombing took place.
No way.
So
oh gosh, that gave me goosebumps.
Right. So I just think, like we talked about earlier, there's like a spiritual sense, to all of our journeys. And if we look for it, it's there.
Yes. So your parents met and married overseas and came from this negative sort of place, but then had you. So now you're upbringing together with them. Were you close with your parents? Was that something that, was part of your story?
Yeah, I had a wonderful childhood experience. And, I wouldn't say, the circumstances of how they went, that's unknowingly. Sure. This happened, in the 40s. Sure. But what I will say is my childhood was exceptional. Yeah. The reason why is because in Japan, you get to, walk around and ride your bikes to your friend's house without having to worry about, being kidnapped or, and any sort of abuse or anything like that. The community looks after the children. We look out for the older folks look out for the younger folks. So it's just, there's a level of respect between the age, and that's being met through formal speaking and calling people Mr. and Mrs. Yes. That's how you kind of cultivate a harmonious society, because there's respect there, automatically. Yes. And I think over here what I'm realizing is like there isn't enough respect toward between the age gap. Everybody's in competition, and everybody, the older generation is making fun of the younger generation, and the younger generation is trying to prove to the older generation how smart they really are, you know, when we clearly don't have enough experience or wisdom under our belt yet. So I just think the Japanese.
Or it's, I've seen it's a matter of, you know, they're like, well, I went through all this hardship, therefore you must go through this hardship, you know, because I'm who I am, or I'm successful because I went through this hardship, rather than I've been through this hardship, let me give you a hand up and teach you how to get here without going through all the mistakes that I've went through.
Exactly, and that's one of the, you know, I currently, and I know I'm kind of moving to present tense, but I just want to be a bridge between, you know, my both cultures.
Yes.
You know, I just, because I learned so many amazing things in my Japanese upbringing, but I also learned a lot of amazing things here in America. You know, of going after your dreams, and you know, just kind of not being afraid, you know, to take that leap of faith over here. And I think that's super inspiring. But I think, you know, by being that bridge and taking, you know, goodness out of, in my case, these two cultures, but other cultures, you know, throughout the world, I just think that we are living in a time period where we start needing to look at ourselves as one race, the human race, and start elevating together, and not just staying stagnant by still, you know, dividing ourselves with race, or staying stagnant by, there's no growth there, you know.
No, and it becomes these silos versus community, and you can get so much further together and with community than you can, you know, in your silos. Now, during your childhood, so you know, mixed race in Japan, were you the only child in your class that was like that?
Oh yeah, yeah, and that was tough too, because I stood out too, because I've always been tall. But you know, your last name is written in a different form of, you know, there's hiragana, katakana, and kanji. Hiragana is the basic ABCs. Katakana is like basic ABCs, but you use to describe foreign objects and people. So my last name was in katakana. So right away, when you look at the board and see my name, you're like, oh, that guy's different. So, yes, so I was, you know, since day one, always felt like I'm different, you know, and I think one thing, you know, as children grow, right, we try to instill to our kids, you're special, you're special, you're special. But I think now that I'm an adult, I reflect on that, you know, special implies that you're better than, or you're different than. But all of us want to feel is inclusivity. We don't want to feel different. We want to feel we are one.
We are part of something.
Right. So I think instead of saying, hey, you're special, I think we need to start saying you're important. We're not special, but we're all very, very important. And I think when you think like that, then we can have the self-confidence and the self-value to say, hey, I may not be special, but I am important. So that gets you up out of bed, and that gets you to contribute to society in a more positive, prideful way. That's the difference, I think, that I want to echo from Japanese culture to American culture, is in America, I feel like when you go to certain places, you know, let's just take restaurants, for example. You get horrible service, as if like they clearly feel that they're too good for the job.
Yes.
Well, if you're too good for the job, why aren't you great at the job, right? So if it's like, but in Japan, when you go there, you get 5-star service, even in McDonald's. They treat you like a king. And the reason why is because there's pride in what they do. And I thought, okay, where's that pride coming from? And in the last trip, I kind of realized, when you as a country go through something horrific as the Hiroshima bombing, right, where people in a large quantity are wiped out with one blow, and then the people who survived, you know, fought radiation throughout their life and told that story, right? And that story still exists till this day. If you go to, I think every human being needs to go visit Hiroshima at least once in their life, because it will give you this important epiphany that violence is never the answer. Because if you bestow the violence, you're going to see the cruelty, and you're going to realize, I shouldn't have done that. You're going to feel that.
Yes, viscerally. And for generations to come.
Correct. And if you are on the other side of violence, you're definitely gonna say, man, I shouldn't have done to provoke that.
Yes.
So the point I'm trying to make is that violence is never the answer. And Hiroshima does a wonderful job of expressing peace. Look at our pain, learn from our pain, wake up, everybody. So when I see what's happening in the world right now, it's extremely discouraging, because that was in the 40s.
Yes.
And here we are with people like me walking around who are mixed culture. You know, we have to start to realize, like, look, like, whatever belief or things that we have to divide ourselves, like the same way we look to find the difference in each other, is the same ability that we have inside of us to see the similarities in one another.
100%.
But we're just choosing to exercise one over the other. And once we figure out, let's exercise this part, I think that's when we'll start living a little bit more harmoniously.
Then you start to see actual change when you dig into. So were you always of that opinion? So you realized, you know, early on you were, because of the different language, like the different dialect or whatnot on the board. So when students, you know, would treat you differently, like, did you always have that initial reaction, or did it take training internally to switch to, okay, instead of being bitter about my circumstances, I'm going to turn it to the positive?
It definitely took a lot of times and a lot of learning experiences. I remember as a kid getting in a lot of fights because of that, standing up for myself, but also, you know, through those experiences, those are meaningful experiences. And I just think that it teaches you valuable lessons. And what's crazy about pain and suffering is that it doesn't break you. It might for a minute or two, or a day or two, whatever. But that it molds you back into something completely different. And when you heal, you become a healer. So for me, now I look at my differences, quote unquote, and it's an advantage of mine. So when I'm in business meetings and I need to break the ice, I will say, I know what you guys are thinking. They'll be like, huh? I'll say, I'm the tallest Asian guy I've ever seen, you've ever seen. And they'll start cracking up just like that. So it's just, you have to be able to take advantage of your differences to make an impression, to make people remember you. But also it gives you an opportunity to represent, you know, multiple cultures. So for me, when I go to Japan, I try to represent America well. And when I come over here, I try to represent Japan well.
Well, I can tell, because even when we first met, you know, I might use the word aura or vibe or whatever it is, but when we first met, you just had that calming presence. It was like you automatically felt comfortable talking to you because there was no pretense. You know, you didn't put out this vibe of, I have to one-up you, or I have to show you who I am, or I have to prove my worth. You know, you were just there doing your thing, working in your talent, and it was this aura of, like, I can be comfortable around this person, I can let my guard down, and then that was way more effective to what we were working on than you coming out like so arrogant, you know, based on where you came from, right? So I really love that. Now, so you learned a lot through those teenage years. You know, all those types of experiences mold us, right? So if we're treated differently as a child, or if we're made fun of, or if school bullies come after us, you know, you took those experiences. Now, did you have, you know, therapists? Did you have your family? Did you study it on your own? You know, did you reflect on that, you know, with your parents? Like, what was those catalysts for change?
A lot of different catalysts. I think number one, speaking to people who are willing to listen, because the hardest thing I probably, as I dug deeper into that, you know, I love my mom and dad, but my mom and dad can't relate to what I'm going through because they're not mixed people themselves. So I just think it's important to speak to people who can empathize with you and try to navigate with them, but also, like, you know, realizing that, like, everything, I just kind of, even then, kind of knew it was shaping me to be a better leader. Because if you want to be a leader in this world, you're gonna go through some hardship, because that hardship is what is going to be that, like, healing, method or healing, like, just antidote for people that you can provide. It's the storytelling, the experience that you can. So for me, I think my perspective changed once I realized that that's what was happening. Because I started to realize when I was talking to people, people were like, will come to me with hardships or certain situations, and I'll always have a positive perspective on it. And they're like, dang, I'm glad I talked to him about this, right? So it's just, I just think that it makes you stronger. So, anybody who's going through this, or going through something, who's watching this video that's going through some hardships, know that you're going to be able to help a human being out.
On the other side of it.
Other side of it.
Because you could take it one of two ways. You can go through it and hate that you went through it and hate your life for it, or you can take it to the other side.
And the moment you realize that you reach there, you're gonna feel a level of joyfulness that's gonna bring you to tears, and fulfillment,
purpose,
and purpose, and realizing that life is always happening for us, not to us. And it's so hard to say that, especially towards people who are going through way worse than we are. It's so hard to say that. I understand that. But from my own experience in the limited time that I've been on this earth, every hardship or every like loneliness or whatever hardship that I may have felt, all of that contributes to me being able to enjoy life a lot more. Like if this is the equilibrium, wherever you are down here, the same exact space you're gonna feel on the other side.
100%.
And you have to trust that. You have to trust that it comes in waves. And which I really appreciate about you acknowledging me earlier, is I try to stay even keeled.
Yes.
It
is.
It's tough.
But it's very safe. And it makes people around you feel safe, which then provides more value to the world around you, because everyone wants to be around that safe-natured person. And it doesn't mean weakness or meekness. It just means security, strength, actually, in that sense.
I think you get there when you learn to accept both. Like if you truly appreciate the yin and yang, you truly appreciate, things of that nature, then you find yourself on that equilibrium where you're able to stay even keeled and, decide like, okay, do I want to feel an extreme amount of happiness on this? Do I want to feel an extreme amount of depression of this? Like, you just got to stay here, and how you get there is acknowledging you need both, because without the darkness, you can't appreciate the light.
Yes. Now, was there a pivotal so you grew up in Japan, you came to America. Was there a pivotal moment that you looked at yourself and you said, sort of like, my life is in my hands. I have the choice to take the circumstances, around me and the circumstances I was born into and turn it on into my positive and my purpose? Was there like a pivotal moment of that, or was it gradual?
Yeah, I think just to fight back on what you just said, I don't think it's necessarily realizing everything is in my hands.
Okay.
I think it was more so realizing that everything else is in God, universe, your ancestors, whatever you believe in's hands. And once I started looking for signs, that's when I realized that like I'm a part of this journey, right? And then like whatever responsibility you have in a day-to-day, those are the purposes that God's assigning you. See, a lot of us, I think, in society today, we're always pressured, right? We graduate college, or no, we graduate high school. What are you going to study for 4 years? And then you graduate college. What are you going to do for the rest of your life? And so we're always pressured to figure out that one thing. But in reality, we don't have one purpose. We have multiple purpose. I have a purpose as an interviewee now. I'm going to switch this purpose as an interviewer in a few minutes. I have a purpose as Henry's cousin. I have a purpose as Dio Sensei in Japan. I have a purpose as a son to my mom. There's so many purposes that God provides us. But instead of being appreciative of all the purpose, we're always looking at, I'm not doing enough, due to the fact that we may not be making enough money, due to the fact that we may not have an impressive enough of a job title. Like, seriously, who cares?
100%.
Like, oh my, it's so exhausting, and then, when you're constantly having to deal with that, I think the reason why I felt so calming is because I'm just not looking to participate in that.
Yes.
See, from in my perspective, life itself is the greatest gift.
Yes.
And everything else is just bonus.
Is a bonus.
So
I feel that.
if I already got life,
Yeah.
what else do I want?
Yes.
There's nothing that can overpower the gratitude that I feel towards life itself, because there's no greater gift.
Yes.
So if that's the greatest gift you can get and you already know you had it,
Yeah.
you're walking around like,
Yeah. I'm winning.
the same feeling you
Yeah.
get when you meet your partner and
Yes.
you find a great significant other. You walk around like you're winning, right? So
Yes.
you should feel the same exact way about yourself and in
Yes.
your life as well.
Yes,
Like
100%.
I'm walking around this earth during these time periods, maybe for 100 years, hopefully,
Yeah.
but like, it's this time period. What can I do with it? You know?
So is that sort of your message when you're speaking with the young people? And do you how do I say it? Like, do you not do you cater, but do you take your message that you have, that you're imparting, like you're imparting it today? Do you take that per group, or is it sort of your overall overarching purpose in this life as you're talking to each group?
Yeah, I just think, you know, I think what we're talking about right now, JoJo, I think it resonates with everybody.
With everyone at every level, young, old,
Right.
no matter what stage of life you're
So
in.
again,
Yeah.
the same ability we have in seeing the difference in people
Yes.
is the same ability we have in seeing the similarities.
Yes.
My conversation needs to be something that everybody can relate to.
Yeah.
And I think that stems from me being a half kid, not being able to fit in both cultures.
Yeah.
I remember when I moved here to America, I remember it was my junior year in high school, and we had the coach left basketball practice, and the players, you know, were given the remaining 30 minutes to do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And we're like, hey, let's do a scrimmage. No coach, woo, right?
Woo, yeah.
Everybody's all excited.
Yeah.
And then we're like, hey, how are we gonna divide up teams? And one kid goes, you know what'll be funny? We'll divide up blacks versus whites. Hey, Leo, you can't play because you're neither. And I remember I sat on that bench, and I was a new kid at that school, so I didn't really have any backup or friends. I was just trying to impress people to try to. Leo now was in it. I would have been like, hold on, no, you're not playing.
No, yeah.
You're playing right now. You better stop playing right now. So like,
Exactly.
but at the time when you're young and you don't know how to stand up for yourself, you don't feel comfortable, you know, because you may not have a lot of people around you.
Yeah.
You know, that forces you to look for strength,
Yeah.
not externally, but internally. Everything you need is inside of you. You know, you just got to be willing to bring that out. And I think that moment I will remember, and I'll continue to share this story for the rest of my
Yes.
life because that really changed me. That made me realize, like, I can't just be sitting here on the
No.
sidelines, just
No.
like being quiet. Like,
Yeah.
I need to speak out
Yep.
for.
Do you tell students that now? Because there's so many circumstances where something like that would happen in schools right now, or worse. So what is your advice to a student that maybe went through something like that or is going through something like that?
If you're going through something like that, again, it's going to help shape, mold you, and in the future, you're going to look back on it and you're going to be thankful for those bullies for making you go through that. Because you're going to be doing something so meaningful to your life that you're going to be like, ooh, thank you, buddy.
Yes.
I don't even know where you're at right now,
Right.
but I don't care because I'm so focused on what I need to do. And because you gave me that experience, I'm able to inspire and help. There's not a more of a gratifying feeling than knowing that you made an impact in somebody else's life. And that's what happened to me. What you said that the moment, what really, you know, I think the moment my life really felt like it re-began or whatever, was when I lost my American grandpa. I moved to America, you know, I went through high school. It was a tough hill climbing uphill because, you know, there was just so much, you know, uphill battle in the sense of studying everything in a different language and looking up definition of definition, cultural differences, you know, dating differences. Like, there was just so much. It was overwhelming, you know, playing sports and try to, you know, do well there. it was just overwhelming. So once I graduated high school, I felt like, whew, I'm done. But then I was like, oh, I gotta go to college now. And that's even harder. So I went to Wayne State, and I get an academic probation letter sent to me after like a year or two because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. So I'm sitting there 3 hours lectures, not pertaining anything, paying $4,000 out of pocket. I'm like, what am I doing? And that's when my grandfather, who I love dearly, my American side, you know, the guy that I would go to, you know, relax and converse with and watch a ball game with, he was diagnosed with cancer. So back and forth I went from hospital, school, and my job that I didn't like. And I just felt like I wasn't going anywhere. But when I witnessed him die with my own eyes and saw that meter go to zero, I realized that's gonna be me one day. Whether I like it or not, whether I take it safe, whether I am angry or sad, that's gonna be me one day. And when I get there, I want to be able to reflect on my life and say, I had a good life. That's what I want. That's what success looks like to me. So for me, part of the reason why I do this camera work is because not only do I want to make sure that every moment is cherished, like what we're having here, but now we get to reflect and watch this. So I may have Alzheimer's when I'm older because my Japanese grandpa had it. I want to be able to watch this footage and say, oh, JoJo. That's my girl right there.
That's my girl. I remember that.
Right? So like that's why I do what I do. So like every hardship, like losing my grandpa, you know, he was, you know, one of my favorite peoples. Or people, you know, and that really it like made me appreciate his life, but it also made me appreciate my life.
Your own and why you're here, you know, why you're here today. Now, when somebody, you know, how does somebody come across you and how can they bring you on to their team to come do a speech at their, whether it's a corporation or schools? Do you do in-country speeches? Or are you just doing, you know, in Japan? Are you doing it here and there? Sort of what's the trajectory as far as how do people reach out to you and get you on board and hire you to be a speaker?
Yeah, I mean, I think to anybody who feels like these stories can bring value, that's the people who I want to reach out to me. You know what I mean? And because I'm here to serve. So, you know, Leo Ayrault Instagram, you know, it's a smaller page, it's a personal page that I'm growing. But then you also have Reality Television, you know, my page that I've been growing for the past 5 years with my production work. So just check that out. You can reach out to me through there. But before I conclude this, I wanted to make sure I bring this point. So like the most important success that really pushed me to the trajectory of that is when I went to my grandpa's funeral. So many people were there, and so many people came up to me and said, you know, Leo, your grandpa made a positive impact in my life. And that's when I realized success isn't, you know, having a cool car or having a huge house or, you know, having a certain amount of money in your bank account. But it's how many people did you impact? How many people come up to you and say, JoJo, I'm thankful you were a part of my life? How many people are going to come to your funeral and say, our memories, man. Like that's what success looks like.
And that you changed their life.
Correct.
You know, because life is so fleeting. How old was your grandpa when he died?
It's like 72, 73, right?
72.
Yeah, around there.
And that's relatively young.
That's relatively
you know, and it's because of, you know, he had he got sick and everything, but, you know, 72 years on this earth is like short. Like you think to yourself, so much can happen and yet so little in 72 years. But now you're talking about him. You're going to tell your kid about him.
Right.
You know, now I've heard about him. The people listening have heard about him. Like that's the impact, you know, not only in the lifetime that he lived, but because he made a positive impact on you, thousands of other people are going to now hear about him. Like that's fascinating.
And once I turned, right, this is the last thing I'm going to say. Once I turned my perspective of success, what success is, to how can I impact people, I go back to school, I change my degree from business to broadcasting communication, because my grandpa had this innate ability to talk to people and make them feel good and important. Communication was a strong suit. So I switched it to that in desire to keep his legacy going.
Oh my gosh.
And I get an internship opportunity one day randomly through the part-time job that I had working at a pharmaceutical company. That pharmaceutical company randomly decides to have a leadership event at Ford Field. And there I meet a former Lions player, Jason Hansen. And because I was studying, you know, people and, you know, on this elevation of how to be great in this world, listening to podcasts and audiobooks at work, I was able to have an elevator speech, prepared, and I met Jason, and I was able to give him an elevator speech, and he was able to refer me to the director of broadcasting communication for the Lions, and that's how I was able to get the internship opportunity to work for the NFL. And from there, I learned the ins and outs of shooting and editing and producing, and that's what I do now.
I appreciate you being here today, and I appreciate this conversation we're having, and I look forward to many more. And I hope everyone can take a lot of value out of this today.
Yeah. Thank you, JoJo, and to what you just said, it's preparation meets opportunity meets success.
Yes.
We're always starving for the opportunity, or we're always wishing for the success, but we're not doing the preparation. But as long as you do the preparation part,
Yes.
which is right in front of you, when the opportunity comes, you will find success.
You're ready for it. Thank you. Thanks, Leo. All right, peace out.